The next morning, Maple Street woke up early. News travels fast in small neighborhoods. By sunrise, almost everyone knew what had happened. They knew the police had come. They knew the stranger was not a stranger at all. But knowing the truth and accepting it were two different things. Marcus woke up on the living room floor. He had not set up his bed yet. The house was still full of dust and boxes. Sunlight came through the thin curtains and landed on his face. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he heard birds outside. He was home. He sat up slowly. His body felt stiff. Years in the military had trained him to wake up alert, ready for anything. Even now, in his own house, his mind stayed careful. He stood and walked to the kitchen. The cabinets were almost empty. He found an old coffee mug that once belonged to his father. It had a small crack on the side. He smiled gently. Outside, Mrs. Carter watched again from her window. She told herself she was not spying. She just wanted to be sure everything was normal. She saw Marcus step into the yard with a trash bag. He began picking up broken branches and old leaves. He worked quietly. He did not look angry. He did not look at anyone. Around mid-morning, a man named Mr. Thompson walked by with his dog. He slowed down when he saw Marcus. "Morning," Marcus said politely. Mr. Thompson hesitated. Then he gave a small nod. "Morning." He kept walking. That small moment felt bigger than it should have. Marcus was used to strange looks. He had seen them in airports when he wore his uniform. He had seen them in stores when people followed him with their eyes. But this was different. This was his street. Later that day, a delivery truck arrived. It brought a large box marked with military symbols. Marcus signed for it. Mrs. Carter noticed. Her curiosity grew stronger than her fear. When Marcus carried the box inside, he opened it slowly. Inside were more of his belongings from the base. Boots, folded uniforms, a framed photo, and a folded American flag. He held the flag carefully. It was given to him after a close friend did not make it home. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. Memories rushed back. Sandstorms, loud nights, the sound of helicopters, the weight of responsibility. He had led a team. He had protected people. He had stood strong in moments when others were afraid. Yet here, in this quiet street, he was treated like a threat. In the afternoon, something unexpected happened. A group of teenagers walked past his house. One of them laughed and said loudly, "Guess the cops got it wrong." Marcus heard them. He did not react. He had learned long ago that not every comment deserves an answer. But someone else heard it too. Tyler, the young boy from 2 houses down, stood on the sidewalk holding his bike. He looked confused. His mother had told him Marcus was a soldier. Soldiers were heroes in his school books. So why were people acting strange? Tyler gathered his courage and walked up to the fence. "Excuse me, sir," he said softly. Marcus turned and saw the boy. "Yes. Is it true you were in the army?" Marcus nodded. "Did you fight?" Marcus paused for a moment. He did not want to scare the child. "I helped protect people," he said simply. Tyler's eyes grew wide. "That's cool." Marcus smiled. "It was my job." Tyler noticed something shiny inside the open box. "Are those medals?" he asked. Marcus hesitated. Then he walked inside and came back with one medal in his hand. He did not brag. He did not explain the danger behind it. He just said, "This means I did my best." Tyler looked at him with pure respect. From across the street, Mrs. Carter saw the whole thing. She watched how gently Marcus spoke. She saw how the boy smiled. This did not look like a dangerous man. This looked like someone tired but kind. That evening, Marcus did something that surprised everyone. He pulled out a small flag stand and placed it near his front door. Then he carefully raised the American flag. He stood straight as it moved in the wind. No one said anything, but many people watched. The same man who was reported as suspicious was now standing proudly under the same flag that hung on their porches every 4th of July. The street felt uncomfortable, because now they had to face a question. If he had served the country, why had they doubted him so quickly? That night, Mrs. Carter sat alone in her living room. The television was on, But she was not watching it. She kept thinking about the police lights. She kept thinking about Tyler's smile. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I was too quick, but pride is strong. Admitting wrong is hard." Across the street, Marcus sat on his porch quietly. The sun was setting. The sky turned orange and pink. He listened to the peaceful sounds of home. For the first time that day, he felt a small sense of hope. He knew trust is not built in one moment. It takes time. The moving truck arrived on Maple Street just after noon. The sun was bright, and the street was quiet. It was the kind of neighborhood where people noticed everything. Curtains moved when cars drove by. Doors opened just a little when someone new appeared. When the truck stopped in front of the old gray house at the end of the street, heads began to turn. The house had been empty for almost 2 years. The grass had grown wild. The paint on the walls was fading. Most neighbors thought no one would ever move there again. Then the truck door opened. A tall black man stepped down slowly. He wore a simple dark jacket and old jeans. In his hand, he carried one small suitcase. It looked worn and heavy, like it had traveled many miles. He stood still for a moment and looked at the house. His name was Marcus Hill. This was not just a house to him. It was his childhood home. He had not stood on this street in 8 long years. Behind the curtains across the street, Mrs. Carter watched closely. She was in her late 60s and had lived on Maple Street for more than 30 years. She believed she knew everyone. She believed she understood what belonged in her neighborhood. She did not recognize Marcus. She saw a stranger. She folded her arms and kept staring. Marcus walked slowly toward the front door. Each step felt heavy. Memories rushed through his mind. He remembered playing in the yard as a child. He remembered his mother watering the flowers. He remembered his father fixing the broken fence. But both of his parents were gone now. The house was his. He placed the suitcase down and pulled a key from his pocket. His hands shook slightly, not from fear but from emotion. Before putting the key into the lock, he paused. He took a deep breath. Coming home was supposed to feel warm, but instead he felt nervous. Across the street, Mrs. Carter picked up her phone. "I think someone is trying to break into the old Hill house," she told the police. "He looks suspicious." She did not know that the Hill house still belonged to a Hill. Marcus turned the key. The door opened with a soft creak. Dust floated in the air inside. The house smelled old and empty. He stepped in for just a second. Then he heard sirens. His body froze. The sound grew louder. Within minutes, 2 police cars stopped in front of the house. Red and blue lights flashed against the quiet homes. Neighbors began stepping outside. Some pretended to check their mail. Others stood openly on their lawns. Marcus walked back out onto the porch. He did not run. He did not shout. He simply stood there. The officers approached him carefully. "Sir, can we see some identification?" one officer asked. Marcus nodded calmly. He reached slowly into his back pocket and handed over his driver's license. The officer looked at it. Then he looked at the house. The address matched. "You live here?" the officer asked. Marcus gave a small nod. "Yes, sir. My parents owned this house. They passed away. I just got back." "Got back from where?" the second officer asked. Marcus looked down at his suitcase for a moment. "I've been serving overseas," he said quietly. The street went silent. Mrs. Carter stepped closer, trying to hear. The first officer noticed something inside the open suitcase. He saw a folded military uniform. On top of it, there was a small wooden box. "Are you military?" the officer asked. "Yes, sir," Marcus answered. "How long?" 8 years. The officer's face softened. He handed Marcus his ID back. "Welcome home," he said gently. The flashing lights turned off. The police cars slowly drove away. But the silence on Maple Street felt heavy. Mrs. Carter's face grew pale. She had not expected this. She had expected something else. Marcus picked up his suitcase again. He did not look angry. He did not yell at anyone. He did not even look at Mrs. Carter. He simply walked back into the house. Inside, he closed the door softly. For the first time since stepping off the plane, He felt something break inside his chest. Overseas, he had faced danger. He had heard explosions. He had lost friends. But this moment felt different. He had come home to rest. Instead, he had to prove he belonged. Outside, neighbors slowly returned to their houses. Some looked embarrassed. Some looked confused. Mrs. Carter stood alone on her porch. She told herself she was just being careful. But deep inside, something did not feel right. Back inside the house, Marcus opened the small wooden box. Inside were medals, symbols of courage, proof of sacrifice. He ran his fingers over them slowly. He remembered long nights. He remembered heat and dust. He remembered promises he made to his mother before she passed. "I'll come home," he had told her. And now he was here. But home did not feel the way he imagined. He walked to the window and looked out at the street. Curtains moved quickly when he looked in their direction. A week after the storm, Maple Street looked peaceful again. The fences were repaired. The branches were gone. The trash bins stood straight. From the outside, everything seemed normal. But inside the hearts of the neighbors, something was still moving. That Saturday, the town held its annual community gathering at the small park near the school. It was a simple event. There were food stands, music, and games for children. Almost everyone from Maple Street planned to attend. Marcus did not. He preferred quiet places. Crowds made him uncomfortable. Loud noises sometimes reminded him of things he did not want to remember. He sat on his porch that afternoon, watching cars drive by toward the park. Then Tyler appeared, riding his bike fast. "Mr. Marcus," he called out, almost out of breath. Marcus smiled. "Slow down before you fall. You have to come to the park," Tyler insisted. "I think I'll stay here," Marcus replied gently. Tyler shook his head. "No, you don't understand. They're talking about you." Marcus frowned slightly. "Talking about me?" "Yes. My mom said the mayor wants to say something special." Marcus felt a strange feeling in his chest. "I don't need attention," he said quietly. But Tyler looked serious. "It's not about attention. It's about respect." Those words stayed in the air. Respect. Marcus stood still for a moment. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said. At the park, people gathered around a small stage. Children laughed near the swings. The smell of grilled food filled the air. When Marcus arrived, some heads turned. But this time, the looks were different. No fear. No suspicion. Just curiosity. Mrs. Carter stood near the front. When she saw him, she gave a small wave. He waved back. The mayor stepped onto the stage and tapped the microphone. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began. The crowd grew quiet. "Today, we want to thank someone in our community." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. The mayor continued. "This person returned home recently after serving our country for 8 years. Many of us did not know his story. Some of us made quick judgments." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Carter lowered her eyes. The mayor looked directly at Marcus. "Marcus Hill, would you please come up here?" For a second, Marcus did not move. Tyler gently pushed him forward. Slowly, Marcus walked to the stage. The mayor shook his hand firmly. "This man," the mayor said loudly, "served overseas with courage. He led a team. He protected lives. He earned medals for bravery." A soft murmur moved through the crowd. The mayor raised his voice. But when he came home, he faced something else. Doubt, fear, suspicion. The words were clear, honest. The crowd became silent. Yet, the mayor continued. He responded not with anger, but with kindness. During the storm, he helped neighbors. He repaired fences. He showed patience when others did not. Mrs. Carter felt tears fill her eyes. The mayor stepped aside slightly. "Marcus, would you like to say something?" Marcus looked out at the crowd. At first, he saw faces that once looked at him with fear. Now they looked at him with attention. He took a slow breath. "I didn't come home to be a hero," he said simply. "I came home because this is where I belong." His voice was calm. "When I wore my uniform, I stood beside people from many different backgrounds. We trusted each other with our lives. He paused. Trust is not about how someone looks. It's about how someone acts. The words were simple, but they carried weight. I know fear can be strong, he continued, but kindness is stronger. There was silence. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. It was Mr. Thompson. Then Tyler. Then more hands joined in. Soon the entire park was filled with applause. Mrs. Carter stepped forward through the crowd. She walked toward the stage, her hands shaking slightly. When she reached Marcus, she turned toward the microphone. I was one of the people who judged him, she said clearly. The crowd became very still. I called the police that first day, she admitted. Gasps moved through the crowd. But he helped me during the storm. He fixed my fence. He showed me more respect than I gave him. Her voice broke. I was wrong. The words hung in the air. Marcus looked at her. Then he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. It takes courage to say that, he said quietly. The crowd watched this moment closely. The same street that once felt divided now felt united. The mayor stepped forward again. Today, he said, we are proud to say, welcome home, Marcus. The applause returned, louder this time. But this time it was not just noise. It was acceptance. As Marcus stepped down from the stage, Tyler ran up to him. You're like a real-life hero, Tyler said. Marcus smiled. No, he replied softly. I'm just your neighbor. And for the first time since he returned, that word felt true. Neighbor. The storm was gone by morning. The sky was clear and bright, as if nothing had happened. But Maple Street looked different. Broken branches lay across lawns. Trash bins were knocked over. One mailbox had fallen completely, and something else had changed too. Mrs. Carter woke up early. She did not sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus opening the door. She heard his calm voice saying, "Come in." She sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the floor. For the first time in many years, she felt ashamed. Across the street, Marcus was already outside. He had been up since sunrise. He walked slowly down the sidewalk, checking for damage. He picked up branches from the road and moved them aside so cars could pass safely. He did not do it for attention. He did it because that was who he was. Tyler stepped outside with wide eyes. "Whoa," he said, looking at the mess. His bike had fallen over during the storm. Marcus helped him lift it. "Storms can be loud," Marcus said. Tyler nodded. "I wasn't scared," he said quickly. Marcus smiled gently. "It's okay to be scared sometimes." Tyler thought about that. A few houses down, Mr. Thompson struggled to move a large branch from his driveway. He was not strong enough to lift it alone. Marcus walked over without being asked. "Need a hand?" he said. Mr. Thompson looked surprised. Then he nodded. Together, they lifted the branch and dragged it aside. "Thank you," Mr. Thompson said quietly. "No problem," Marcus replied. People began to notice. Not whispers this time. Real noticing. Mrs. Carter stood on her porch, watching everything. Her fence was still damaged from the fallen tree branch. She stepped down slowly and walked toward it. Before she could even touch it, Marcus appeared beside her. "I'll fix this today," he said simply. She looked at him carefully. "You don't have to," she said. "I know," he answered. That one word carried meaning. He didn't have to help her, but he chose to. She stepped back and watched as he measured the broken wood. His movements were careful and skilled. He replaced the damaged pieces and secured them tightly. As he worked, she finally found the courage to speak again. "I judged you," she said softly. Marcus kept working but listened. "I didn't even know your name," she continued. "I saw you and made a decision in seconds." Marcus stopped hammering. He leaned slightly against the fence. "My name is Marcus," he said gently. She nodded. "I know that now." There was silence between them, but it was not heavy like before. Felt honest. "I thought I was protecting my home," she admitted. Marcus looked at the repaired fence. "And now?" he asked. She swallowed. "Now I think I was protecting my fear." The words surprised even her. Marcus gave a small nod. "Fear can be loud," he said. But it doesn't always tell the truth. She felt tears in her eyes again, but this time she did not hide them. Around them, other neighbors slowly stepped outside. Some began cleaning their own yards. A few glanced toward Marcus and Mrs. Carter. They saw something new. Not tension, not suspicion, but conversation. By afternoon, Maple Street was busy with activity. People worked together to clean up. Someone brought lemonade outside. Another neighbor offered extra tools. Marcus moved from house to house, helping where he could. He fixed a loose shutter. He carried heavy wood. He even helped an elderly man restart his generator. No one had asked him to do these things, but he did them anyway. As the sun began to set, the street looked almost normal again. Mrs. Carter walked into her kitchen and opened a cabinet. She pulled out flour, sugar, and butter. She had not baked in months. An hour later, she walked across the street holding a warm pie. Her hands shook slightly, but she kept walking. Marcus was sitting on his porch, resting after the long day. When he saw her coming, he stood up. "I made this," she said awkwardly. "It's apple." He smiled softly. "Thank you," he said. She handed it to him carefully. "I can't change what I did," she said, "but I can try to do better." Marcus looked at her, not with anger, not with pride, just calm understanding. "That's enough," he replied. From their windows, neighbors watched again. But this time they were not whispering. They were thinking. The man they once doubted had helped them rebuild after the storm. The woman who once called the police had crossed the street with an apology. That evening, as the sky turned orange and pink, Maple Street felt warmer. Not because of the weather, but because something important had happened. Trust had started to grow. Not through speeches, not through big announcements, but through actions. And as Marcus looked down at the pie in his hands, he realized something. Coming home was never going to be simple. But maybe, just maybe, it was going to be meaningful. The weather changed without warning. That afternoon, the sky turned dark gray. Heavy clouds rolled over Maple Street. The air felt thick and heavy. Even the birds went quiet. Marcus noticed it first. Years in the military had trained him to read the sky. He looked up and knew a strong storm was coming. Across the street, Mrs. Carter was bringing in her laundry when the first loud thunder shook the ground. She jumped and hurried inside. Within minutes, rain began to fall. Not soft rain, hard rain. Wind pushed against the houses. Tree branches bent and cracked. Trash cans rolled across driveways. Marcus stepped outside one last time to secure his tools. He tied down a loose tarp near the fence and checked the flag by his door. The storm grew stronger. Lightning flashed bright across the sky. Then suddenly, the power went out. The entire street went dark. Inside her house, Mrs. Carter gasped. Her lights flickered once, then disappeared. The room fell into deep silence. She lived alone. The sound of the wind against her windows made her nervous. The house felt colder, bigger, emptier. She grabbed her phone. Low battery, only 10%. Her hands began to shake. Another loud crack of thunder made her flinch. Outside, a large tree branch broke and fell near her front yard. She moved toward the window carefully. Through the rain, she saw something. Light. A warm, steady light coming from Marcus's house. He had a generator. Mrs. Carter stepped back from the window quickly. Her heart beat fast. The same man she had called the police on was now the only house on the street with light. She paced her living room. "I can manage," she whispered to herself. But then she heard something else. A loud crash from her backyard. She froze. Fear filled her chest. Her phone now showed 5%. She knew she could not stay alone like this. For a long moment, she stood at her door, her hand on the handle. Pride fought with fear. Then another flash of lightning lit up the sky. That was enough. She opened the door and stepped into the rain. The wind pushed against her small frame. Her coat was thin. The rain quickly soaked her hair. Each step toward Marcus's house felt heavy. Her shoes slipped slightly on the wet pavement. She reached his porch and hesitated. What if he refused? What if he reminded her of that day? What if he closed the door? Her hand trembled as she knocked. Inside, Marcus was checking his flashlight batteries when he heard the knock. He moved quickly to the door. When he opened it, he saw Mrs. Carter standing there, wet and shaking. For a second, they both said nothing. The storm roared behind her. "My power is out," she said quietly, her voice almost lost in the wind. Marcus stepped aside immediately. "Come in," he said. No anger, no questions, just two simple words. She stepped inside. Warm air wrapped around her. The light from a small lamp made the room feel safe. A soft humming sound from the generator filled the space. Marcus handed her a towel. "You're soaked," he said calmly. She nodded but could not meet his eyes. He guided her to sit down on a chair. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "Just scared." Marcus nodded gently. "I'll grab another flashlight," he said. "We should check your house when the wind slows down." Her eyes widened. "You would do that?" "Of course," he replied. He put on his rain jacket again without hesitation. A few minutes later, when the storm became slightly weaker, they stepped back outside together. The rain still fell hard. They walked carefully to her backyard. A large branch had crashed into her fence, nearly breaking it completely. Marcus examined it quickly. "It's just the fence," he said. "The house is fine." Relief washed over her face. Back inside, he helped her check the circuit breaker. He made sure her windows were secure. He moved with confidence and calm. She watched him quietly. This was not the man she had imagined that first day. This was someone steady, someone dependable. When they returned to his house, she held the towel tightly in her hands. "I'm sorry," she suddenly said. Marcus paused. "For what?" he asked softly. She swallowed hard. "For judging you." The words felt heavy as they left her mouth. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he gave a small nod. "Storms make people afraid," he said gently. She realized he was not just talking about the weather. Tears filled her eyes. The wind outside slowly became softer. The thunder moved farther away. Inside the small house at the end of Maple Street, something else shifted too. Fear was replaced with understanding. Silence was replaced with honesty. When the power finally returned to the street hours later, Mrs. Carter stood at Marcus's door before leaving. "Thank you," she said sincerely. Marcus gave a simple smile. "You're welcome." As she walked back to her house, she looked at Maple Street looked peaceful on the outside. The lawns were green. The houses were neat. The mailboxes stood in perfect lines. But behind the curtains, whispers moved like the wind. Every time Marcus stepped outside, someone noticed. Every time he carried tools into the yard, someone watched. It had been 3 days since the police came. No one mentioned it openly, but no one forgot it either. That morning, Marcus woke up early again. He put on work gloves and began fixing the broken fence around the yard. The wood was old and weak. Some pieces had fallen down completely. He worked slowly and carefully. Hammer, nail, measure, cut. The sound of his tools echoed softly down the street. Across from him, Mrs. Carter pretended to water her plants. But her eyes kept moving toward Marcus. She noticed something she had not seen before. His movements were calm. His face looked focused, not angry. There was no loud music, no shouting, no trouble. Just quiet work. Around noon, a black car pulled up in front of his house. 2 men stepped out wearing clean uniforms. For a second, Mrs. Carter's heart jumped. More police? But these were not police. They were former soldiers. They hugged Marcus tightly. One of them laughed loudly and said, "You finally made it home, brother." Marcus smiled in a way no one on the street had seen yet. It was a deep smile. Real. Warm. They talked for a while on the porch. Their voices were low, serious at times, then suddenly full of laughter. Neighbors watched from their windows. "Who are they?" someone whispered. "They look official," another voice answered. After some time, the 2 men stood straight and shook Marcus's hand firmly. Before leaving, one of them saluted him. Mrs. Carter froze. She had only seen salutes in movies and parades. The black car drove away. The street became quiet again. But something had changed. Later that afternoon, Marcus brought out a small wooden table and placed it near the sidewalk. He sat down and began cleaning his old boots. They were dusty from storage, but still strong. Tyler rode his bike toward him. "Can I ask you something?" Tyler said carefully. Marcus looked up. "Of course. Why did the police come the other day?" The question was honest. No anger, just confusion. Marcus thought for a moment. "Sometimes," he said gently, "people are afraid of things they don't understand." Tyler looked down at his bike handles. "But you didn't do anything." Marcus nodded. "I know. Does that make you mad?" Marcus smiled softly. "It used to." Tyler looked surprised. "Used to?" "Yes," Marcus said. "But anger is heavy. I carried enough weight already." Tyler did not fully understand those words, but he felt them. Across the street, Mrs. Carter heard part of the conversation. Her hands slowly stopped moving. Anger is heavy. Those words stayed in her mind. That evening, something small but important happened. Mr. Thompson, the man with the dog, walked past again. This time, he did not just nod. He stopped. "That fence looks good," he said. "Thank you," Marcus replied. "You did that yourself?" "Yes, sir." There was a short silence. Then Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "My nephew is in the army," he said. "Been overseas for 2 years." Marcus looked up. "I hope he's safe." Mr. Thompson nodded slowly. "So do I." For the first time, their eyes met without fear. It was not friendship yet, but it was a crack in the wall. As night fell, Maple Street grew quiet again. Lights turned off one by one. Inside her house, Mrs. Carter sat at her kitchen table. A cup of tea rested untouched in front of her. She thought about the salute. She thought about the laughter. She thought about the boy asking questions. She remembered how quickly she picked up the phone that first day. She told herself she was protecting the neighborhood. But who was she really protecting? Her mind replayed the moment the officer said, "Welcome home." Those words were meant to be warm, but she had made that welcome cold. Across the street, Marcus stood by his window, looking out at the dark sky. He saw shadows moving behind curtains. He knew people were still unsure about him, but he also noticed something new. The whispers were softer, the stares were shorter, and one small detail stood out. The next morning, when he walked outside, 2 neighbors gave him a quiet wave. Small waves, but real. Marcus raised his hand and waved back. Trust does not come in loud announcements. It comes in small, brave moments. And on Maple Street, the battle was no longer about fear. It was about change. And change had just begun.